I'm like, did I not have any self-respect? Did I let somebody for that many years completely ignore me? And the answer is yes. But I have to look at the whole picture culturally. That's just the way it was. It's also what gave me the strength to finally go, I know that I'm not living the rest of my life like this. My mom lived her life like this. My grandma did. Everybody else back home might be lit, but I'm not living my life like this.
Welcome to It's Both, the podcast where we explore the messy, beautiful contradictions of being human. I'm your host, Nikki P, and each week I sit down with real people navigating life's complexities. Those moments when life isn't just one thing, it's so many. And this week I sit down with one of my best friends of all time, Janice Holland, also known as the trauma teacher, to talk about staying in a marriage that isn't aligned for you. Now, there are so many reasons that people stay in marriages that aren't aligned for them, but in today's conversation, we get to hear from Janice about her personal story of being in a marriage that ultimately was not right for her. She talks about the struggles of staying, her journey in unraveling the truth of her relationship, and the importance of pursuing your own personal joy. We also talk about societal and cultural pressures that influence relationships, particularly within the context of Christian culture, and our journey towards self-empowerment and clarity. So let's jump in. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi. So excited to be here.
I'm so excited. We actually get to talk live, which never, ever happens.
Never happens. I know.
It's funny. I was thinking about this yesterday. Those of you listening, Janice lives in China, and I'm in Nashville, and we talk on Marco Polo all the time. I think I probably talk to you, 100% I talk to you more than anybody else because I think I get on Marco Polo almost daily. Probably daily.
Same. I get so excited. I wake up. It's like the first thing I do is I look. I'm like, is there a Marco Polo? And there almost always is. And I get so excited. So I get my coffee and I listen. And then I spend the first 30, 45 minutes of my day chatting with you.
I know. I think I almost am going to start doing it with friends, even in the States, because I don't know what it is. It's so much easier to connect and talk. I think it's that flexibility of it not being live, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then you get to talk live like this, and it's nice. It's wonderful.
It is nice.
Today, we are going to be talking about staying in a marriage that is not aligned with you. And so before we jump in, I just wanted to know if you would take a couple minutes and introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about who Janice is.
Hey, yeah. So I am a therapist. I'm a licensed counselor through the state of Texas, and I'm certified in trauma. So I do a lot of different things because I get bored really fast. So I have a private practice that I run, and I also teach and train other counselors and therapists on trauma. I go into schools and help them become trauma informed, or different organizations, any organization that wants to be trauma informed. I do those trainings. There's a hospital here in Shanghai I work at offering mental health services. I also work at NYU offering mental health services to the students there. So just like I said, I get bored easily. So every day looks really different. I just have to have an organized calendar and I make it all work. So that's like me professionally. Personally, I'm a mixed bag of sloppy hair, PJs, no shower for days, or like I love dressing up, going out, like getting fancy, doing fun things. I feel like I'm like one extreme or the other. I don't have much middle ground. I'm either dressed up looking cute or like scary.
Yeah. Which is so relatable. I feel like the middle ground is the hardest thing to get ready for. Like, how do you dress in the middle? How do you get ready for in the middle? Like the regular everyday stuff. That's difficult for me.
I agree. And the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't know about this like soccer mom look. I'm not into that look, but
you don't like athleisure?
Like it. That's the thing is I like it. Then when I see pictures, I'm like, oh, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah, I like the feeling of it, and then I see it, and I'm like, oh,
exactly.
Well, I could have tried. I mean,
exactly.
No, I love that. And if you if you had to say a little bit more, like a little bit about your personality or a little bit about who Janice is, what are some things you like or some little quirks about you?
Yeah, okay. So I think I'm kind of coming more into my own. Like I used to only really show my personality around people that I know really well, but the older I get, the less shits I give, and so I'm just feel like I'm a little more myself all the time. I'm definitely sarcastic. I do kind of cuss like a sailor, and I'm just kind of okay with it at this point. It's just the way it is. And I love, like, I follow all kinds of influencers and like fashion blogs and stuff. So I'm really into that kind of thing. Although I don't spend very much money on clothes, but I still just like to indulge in it's like art to me. So I see fashion as art. So I'm kind of into that kind of stuff. I was always an athlete, so I do still kind of follow some athletic stuff. My son's an athlete too, so I really enjoy connecting with him through sports. Even though I don't, like I get injured really easily now, so I don't play that much anymore. But I do still enjoy connecting with him through that.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I really love, I don't know why, but I think because I want to be more outspoken and want to be able to like feel like I can curse without worrying about what people are going to think. I love the fact that you do because I'm like, yeah, okay, I need to get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, well,
And I
I've
think
got
it's
like
just
a
like,
decade on you.
yeah, well, it's just, but also the freedom. I feel like there's a lot of freedom and just like, you know what? I don't give any shits. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I want to live into that a bit more. I am so excited because this conversation, especially, is one you and I talk about all the time. And I want to hear, and I want everybody else to hear a bit about your story, about what it was like to meet, fall in love, be in a relationship, be in a marriage with somebody, and then ultimately, whether you chose to stay or not, like what that looked like for you in a marriage that was not right for you, that was not aligned. We both have our stories around this. So if you could walk us through kind of what that story is, and then we'll talk about a bit about why do you stay, or why did you stay, or why do people stay, and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think this is such an important conversation. And honestly, I think as a therapist and even more so as a person who trains therapists and coaches, one of my I think part of what makes me good at what I do and really relatable is that I keep it super real, like super, super real. And my life experience has kind of led me to a place where I just have to. Like I played games for so long, not really wanting to, but feeling like I had to, that I just saw how much it cost me in the end, trying to conform and trying to play the right kind of game to like win at life or be acceptable or good, or I'm not sure what the right word is there, but anyway, so yeah, I love that we're having this conversation because I want to really invite anybody listening just to lean in and let's get real about what it's,
Mm-hmm.
costing us to try to be good and do the right thing. I think most people, their heart's in the right place. So for me, I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, community, Christian school, very small Christian school, and was taught from a very early age, like all the rights and wrongs and do's and don'ts. And I pretty much followed them always. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's kind of a no brainer, right? Like so you're telling me there's a formula for me to be happy, to have what I want, to feel successful. Why would I not do those things? So I never really understood people who were like quote rebellious or like falling or
Yeah.
whatever those words are that the conservative culture uses. I was like,
Backsliding.
backsliding, that's it. Yeah, like why would you do that if you're gonna like just end up being miserable in the end? Like I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of did all the right things. So I met the guy that I married. We actually met our sophomore year in high school. We didn't start dating then. I went to a different school my junior year, but came back to the school that I had grown up in for my senior year. And so we started dating in January of my senior year and dated all the way through college and then got married after college. it looked like a super ideal, like we just looked like an ideal couple. We were cute together. We sang on the worship team at church together. We went to college together, held hands. I mean, everything looked perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have sex before we got married. That was like a big deal in our culture. There was a lot of, especially through college, there were a lot of moments where I started questioning, like, shouldn't he at least want to? But then anytime I'd say something to people, they would be like, you're so lucky. Most guys, like, don't respect girls. You have this guy who really respects you. So I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, I shouldn't worry about that. Um, but physical intimacy was an issue from the very beginning. And then once we got married, it continued to be an even bigger issue.
So when you guys started dating and through all those years, like, did you feel the desire for you? Did you ever feel like he would try to kiss you or try to do anything that like sparked the romantic side?
So what's interesting about that is I experienced sexual abuse through quite a bit of my childhood. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of that experience, I really didn't want
Mm,
I was uncomfortable with sexual attention.
yeah.
I think different people respond in different ways. Some people who've experienced that kind of abuse, like, pursue it more strongly
Mm-hmm.
than others.
Yeah.
I kind of went the opposite way, where I was kind of scared of, so that made him actually really safe, is that he
Mm,
wasn't aggressive, he
yeah.
wasn't trying to pursue me sexually, he wasn't. So I think, like, in my nervous system, I that's probably a big reason why we attracted to each other, is because I didn't really want that. However, in college, the older I got and the more, like, my friends were going out and dating and having sex and just talking about,
Mm-hmm.
like, even getting close, even in the Christian culture, well, we weren't having
Yeah.
sex, but, like, you would talk about how close you got to it and, like, all the things you
Mm-hmm.
did except
Mm-hmm.
that. And,
Oh yeah.
and I just was like, okay, I'm missing something, so and I do remember wishing he would, like, pursue me a little bit more. But like I said, if I would say something to people about it, they would kind of shut me down. And I was like, oh, just felt shame. And so didn't mention it again. Once we got married, it was definitely an issue. So it was it's a very long, rocky story. But in the end, after 20 years of marriage, he finally came out as gay. And so, I mean, we moved to China 16 or so years of marriage. That's when it started really unraveling, once we got out of our culture, out of our Christian culture, out of our hometown. Then it became really, really obvious that he couldn't hide, because he had
Mm-hmm.
always worked in, like, Christian environments and things like that. And so when he got out of an environment where he couldn't hide and play the game and play the role of the Christian guy,
Yeah.
and out in, like, the real world, people just want you to be yourself, and he had no idea who that was. And so it started unraveling pretty quickly, but it actually took another um 2.5 years or so before he came out. And by then, like, I had by after when we moved to China, within that first year, I had given him my ring back and was like, I don't know what's going on, but you need to figure this out. um
Mm-hmm.
our oldest son at the time was in high school. I was like, you have until he graduates. If you can't figure this out, then we're not gonna be together once he graduates. And um
And
so yeah, that
when you say figure it out, like were those initial conversations he was like, I think I might be gay, or was it kind of focused on something else? And that's where you were like, hey, I don't know what's going on. Like, you need to figure this out.
yeah, no, I mean, he had he had been attracted to, like, gay porn and different, and he would talk about guys, but it was all, like, because he had been abused, and that's not really who he is. Like, he was fully
Mm,
convinced that's not really who he is. And for me, was like, I just want to be desired. I want to be adored. I want your eyes to light up when you see me. I want that, just that kind of unconscious feeling, like traction that
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I could strap myself naked to the ceiling fan and he wouldn't notice, you know. I was like, I want, so whatever you need to do to feel like I'm your girl, like, and you love when I walk in the room, and we had really struggled through the whole marriage with me feeling like bearing the burden of like caretaking, and he was quite
Mm-hmm.
selfish in his just in the way he lived his life. And I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I want a partner. I want somebody who will carry the financial responsibilities with me, who I can talk to as a partner, not as like somebody I'm taking care of, which is kind of the dynamic
Mm-hmm.
that we had, like more of a parent child dynamic. And I was like, and I want to be just like loved and adored. So those are kind of the things I was looking for, that when I gave him the ring back, I was like, this is what I deserve. I finally know this is what I want and I deserve. And I don't know why you can't give it to me. I need you to figure that out.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, even through the whole experience and the whole marriage, the whole relationship, I mean, you didn't know, obviously, till the end, right? Like that he was gay. Did you have any inclination of that, or any sort of sense, I guess, from the beginning or in the middle that that
Yeah.
was it all at play?
I mean, I remember when this is a hard thing to answer because I was so brainwashed in the culture I was
Mm,
living in that I knew he had some same sex attraction. I knew that he had
mm-hmm.
been addicted to gay porn. That came out over the years, and I was devastated. Of course, I mean, there's such a big story there with he was working at a church and he got fired, and there was just all kinds of. But it never. I mean, he was so dead set on this. No, you know, gay is not a thing. I'm not gay. This is just something I'm dealing with because the experiences I've had. I'm straight. I want to be straight. I'm absolutely straight. Like he was fully convinced. And so because I wanted it to work, I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like I feel like I sound
Yeah.
crazy
You don't. You
saying
don't.
it now, but it's like, yeah, I was fully convinced that no, he's not. And even when I gave him the ring back, I didn't have any, like, it didn't cross my mind that he wasn't going to do what he needed to do to, like, I was planning our second wedding. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, like, having been in a marriage where I also didn't feel aligned, it doesn't sound crazy. And of course, my story was very different, but I understand. And I think a lot of people in a marriage that is not right for them will understand what you're saying, even though the issue could be interchanged with something else. Like that feeling that you kind of in your gut, you're like, oh, okay, something is off. But then they can completely convince you with everything that they have, whether they believe it or not. I mean, it convinces you, and then you kind of feel like you're after the fact, you're like, how did I not see that? If you're like me and dinner time creates so much anxiety and stress, and you have very little time, especially if you have kids, from the time you get home until bedtime, let me suggest Hungry Root. Hungry Root has been a game changer for our family. Every week I go in and I pick out our meals for the following week. I get to select 4 servings, which is huge. A lot of delivery services don't allow for multiple servings like that, but it's enough to feed our family. They are really affordable. They're significantly cheaper than what you would get with some of the other subscriptions out there that tend to be very pricey and fancier, I would say, than Hungry Root. But it also offers a lot of healthy options. And so you can pick different dietary restrictions. Like I usually always select anti-inflammatory for the family, which is like a lot of fish, a lot of veggies, things like that. But you can also select vegan, vegetarian, high protein, gluten-free, all these different variations that you can choose from. That's affordable, it's healthy, and almost every single meal is less than 30 minutes to make. And oftentimes, if it's more than 30 minutes, it's just the bake time that takes a little bit longer. The prep time on almost all of these meals is very minimal, that even somebody like me, who has self-proclaimed that I do not like to cook because it creates anxiety and stress in me, I can even make these meals. It's been easy on my husband, who generally is the one that cooks, because I prepare ahead of time, like what the recipes are going to be. I pick them on Hungry Root. I pick and I, choose things that are easy for his preference, that I know him and the kids and myself are going to like. And it's made our dinner time routine so much easier in a way that none of the other subscriptions have. And it's yet still affordable, as if we were like going to the grocery store and getting our groceries. So if you want to try it out, I highly recommend it, regardless of if it's just you and a partner, or you and kids. It works for any size family, any size household. And if you're interested, you can click the link below and get $50 off your first box. So it sounds like, though, like in hearing your story, and I know a lot of people, when we talked about this before, but a lot of people probably think it wasn't right because he was gay. And that obviously is a part of it. But it sounds like, because you so much didn't recognize that or believe it, it sounds like that wasn't really one of the biggest issues, at least that was apparent to you throughout the marriage, right? Like, you named a lot of other things that showed up. So talk a little bit about, through those years, prior to finding out he was gay, before any of that came up, like, what did the marriage look like for you all, and how did it feel for you? Like, did you know through those years, this isn't right, I don't need to be in this? And how did you kind of come to that realization over time?
So initially, I was really disappointed because I don't know. I just pictured when we first got married that we would have fun together and like build furniture together because we were dirt poor, and just hang out together. And we would, like, I remember we got Six Flags season passes and would go like eat dinner and then go, like, in our first few years of marriage. That was, but it was only like if it was something he wanted to do, we would go do it. But if
Mm,
I wanted to do something, then I
yeah,
mean, he would just like, he wouldn't just not do it. He would like pitch a fit about it or like shame me for it. And
really.
um I guess I had such a low self-esteem, or was so afraid of rejection,
Mm-hmm.
that I do remember feeling sad and disappointed, but I also remember like kind of thinking it was my fault, or I shouldn't have suggested that, or I should have,
Yeah,
just enjoy what he wants to do. We just kind of twist things and make it like, and it's something I had been doing, I think, before I got married. So I just continued to do it. I grew up in a family where I have two older brothers, and I don't know. I think generationally, females just kind of are there for service and nothing else. And so
yeah,
I do remember feeling like sad and lonely and disappointed, but I also, it never crossed my mind to like stand up for myself or say this is unacceptable. Not
yeah.
until
Oh,
years.
yeah. Well, and especially growing up in the culture that you've described. I mean, I grew up in that too. And I think there's just such strong messages around how it is good for us as women. It's our jobs to almost repress everything inside of us to serve others. Yeah. So I I completely understand. I think that aspect of it. And with you guys, I mean, did it show up? Was there ever a time where you felt like he was like, "Hey, Janice, like, what do you want to do? I want to do this for you," or "I really want to enjoy the things that you enjoy."
You know what? No. And I think because, like, once I finally started really coming into my own, so when I had my oldest son, I was 25 years old. We had been married like 2.5 years. And I kind of fell apart. I unraveled and just kind of have like a crisis. And so I started counseling at that point, and like regular weekly. And I was in counseling for years. It took me years to deal with my own childhood trauma I had been through. I don't, maybe it wouldn't have taken me that long had I not been married to somebody who kept the foundation under my feet was never solid, because he had to. I mean, you think about it, you are a gay man living a straight Christian man's life,
Yeah.
and at all cost, the finger cannot be pointed to him. The attention cannot be on
Mm-hmm.
him, because then it would be revealed that this whole smoke screen, would vaporize. And so um, he was so good and so convinced. Like, he's got this big personality. Everybody loved him. He knew how to play the game very well. He was very well liked in all Christian circles, very well liked, a strong leader. And so he just kind of kept the mirage going in a way where I never felt like my feet were really fully under me. I never, no, I never had a moment. I remember now, like, did he ever? No, he never looked at me, asked me what I wanted, thought like his gifts for me at Christmas and for my birthday were things that he wanted. It was, and I think like getting to a place at once it was over, realizing how bad it was and how I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, did I not have any self respect? That I let
Mm-hmm.
somebody for that many years completely ignore me? And the
Yeah.
answer is yes. But I have to look at the whole picture culturally. That's just the way it
Mm-hmm.
was, you know? So, yeah, but I think it's also what gave me the strength to finally go, I know that I just like I'm not living the rest of my life like this. My mom lived her life like this, my grandma did. Everybody else back home might be lit, but I'm not living my life like this. I know I deserve
Mm-hmm.
more. And I think that's what was so hurtful in the beginning is he would just look at me like completely confused. And I would have to like explain things. And I remember explaining, I was like, so we have two boys. I was like, so like if this, I don't want to name my kids at that. I was like, if this son hits this son, would you go, which son would you go comfort? And he'd be like, oh, I would have to like give him a scenario that wasn't he and I before he could kind of wrap his head around how I might be thinking or feeling in a situation. I was like, have you ever had the thought, what is it like to be married to me? And he goes, no.
Wow.
It's like, shit, I think about it every day.
When, like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of blows my mind. So what, I mean, at what point in the relationship did you start having those conversations?
It was after I gave the ring back.
Oh, so
So,
that was that many.
yeah,
Wow. So
yeah,
he, the whole, I mean, that was what you said, 16 years, 18
yeah,
years at that point.
mhm,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, as long as we were in our home culture and he was like
Mm-hmm.
doing his thing at the Christian school, I mean, you just couldn't touch him. You couldn't say anything to him. You couldn't challenge anything. And he could always come right back with a scripture or with I don't, he could twist everything. And so I just kept, and I couldn't think clearly because of that. So it wasn't until we got
Mm-hmm.
out and he's the one who then started like I was fine because I've been myself this whole time, so I could go in any environment and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
He started unraveling, and then that's when I started to be able to think clearly.
So it took sort of his unraveling for you to go, oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
to step out of it. Mm-hmm. Gosh. So as you describe all this, one thing I'm thinking, and I'm sure others that are listening would go, who haven't, probably more those who have not been through an experience like this in a marriage that isn't right for them, but why stay? Through all of what you described in all those years and, feeling like in your gut something's wrong, but then being, logicked out of it or talked out of
right.
it, but yeah, what kept you there?
So I when my son was in his first 2 or 3 years, my oldest son, so like my between 25 and 30, the years for me between 25 and 30, um, I did. It's the only time I like seriously considered because that's when I found out about his addiction to gay porn, and I found out about and like I think his extreme selfishness just really came to the surface because we had a child and it was just so much more stressful to manage an
Oh
infant,
God.
right?
Yeah.
And I was not doing well. I was super depressed, postpartum depression, like, and so I was not okay. And then all this other stuff started coming out with him. And I did consider at that point leaving But a few things stopped me. One was I didn't meet anybody, and I was really only talking to people in the church. So you have to like take that for what it is. There
Yeah.
wasn't anybody who was like, I think that like when I would suggest it, I did have a couple people say, like, I think anybody who knew the truth about what's going on would tell you you like biblically have a right to, but do you really want to do that? Like, is that really what you want to do? So then it was
Mm,
like,
yeah.
I wasn't really supported and I was young and scared. So, and that in combination with, I became really scared of his anger and of his
Mm,
rages and of his manipulation and, like who he was behind closed doors. Like at this time, he was working in a church, and so he was very well known, very well popular, but at home was really kind of his anger and rages and were scary. And I knew that if I left him, his ego would be so he would get so angry and upset that he would smear me. And because I had such bad depression and was really struggling to just function,
mm-hmm.
I was scared that legally I would not get custody of our son. And I didn't want to expose my son to his dad without my protection. So
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, and I think that's something a lot of women particularly, probably men too, but a lot of people can relate to is even if you have a moment of clarity of like, I don't want to do this and I don't deserve and I want out, when kids are
Yeah.
involved, um, especially if it's somebody that you are kind of scared of, or like it's just really hard to make that call. He wasn't hitting me. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
bruises. It wasn't to that
Yeah.
level, but the coercion and the emotional turmoil was pretty profound. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just couldn't. I kept all of this a secret from my parents because I was so embarrassed that I had picked somebody who was like this. I think that's another piece of it is you hide a lot of it because you don't want people to
Mm-hmm.
know that you put yourself in a situation with like you chose somebody
Yeah.
who's like this, and that's super
Yeah.
embarrassing. And so you just hide it so nobody will know, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
So there's all these layers to it, right? Like, so if I leave, then everybody's going to know what's happened and what he's really like. And I don't, at the time, I'm not thinking they're going to think what an asshole he is. I'm thinking they're going to look at me and go, why did you pick somebody like that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to face that.
No, I mean, that makes so much sense. And the two things that stuck out to me as you were, there's so many things that, I connect to, but the first thing was when you said, oh, you worded it so springs back memories, like biblically allowed or something like that. And I think I completely understand that in a similar way with my previous marriage of I had this feeling growing up in that same Christian culture where the only thing that made it okay for a woman to leave a marriage was infidelity. And even then you should really like forgive him and make it work because that's the better thing to do. But was physical violence.
Hmm.
That was the only thing that was quote biblically acceptable as a reason for leaving. Which I think just the pain that idea causes, and I mean that also ties into what you talk about. Like I felt like I had to be good, so I think that's a huge piece. But also hearing you talk about you don't want to tell anybody, and I think there's this so much shame that I've also experienced in if I tell people what's going on, like, and I guess it's ego. Well, for me, it was like, I made this choice. People are going to see that,
Yeah.
like, what is wrong with me that I chose this? Like, this is my mistake. And I think even in that, it's still taking the brunt of the choice of this marriage that isn't right for you. Like, it's not an equal, we both chose to be in something that isn't aligned. It's no, it's my fault. And I know for me, and I hear it in your story too, of going, oh, I made this choice, so I gotta like put my big girl panties on, and like this is what
Hmm.
I have to deal with this is like my punishment for the choice that I made, and I don't have a choice
Yeah,
to leave.
absolutely. Yeah, that. And I had this huge I'm not really sure where it came from. I think maybe it came from when I was really young and just being determined to make a life for myself and to make my
Mm,
parents grew up in extreme poverty and climb their way to a stable middle class, but their mentality was still very much we scrimp and save for everything. We don't, it was still kind of that very poverty like mentality. And I was like so determined to break free. Like I'm a dreamer and I still am a
mm-hmm,
dreamer. And I was like, I
mm-hmm,
want redemption. Like I'm going to find redemption. And I just kept holding on to redemption, even in my marriage. Just like I will do anything for my family to make this work to
mm-hmm.
I just kept waiting for that moment where everything worked out, where he came to his senses, where it all was going to come together and all be worth it. And that was such a huge piece once I finally left, is that like the past cannot be a driver and determiner for the future that we want. We can't fix the past. And I kept just believing somehow the future is going to fix my past and that will make all of this worth it. Somehow it's going to, even though there was no evidence anywhere, like he had never, one time,
Mm-hmm.
really showed me love. Um, not one time. And I still was like, it's going to happen. I believe, we just get so, and I think that's a big piece of it. We just get so lost in the story, the fantasy that
Mm,
we create in our mind.
yeah,
And I think the church does a real disservice to people in promoting the fantasy of
yeah,
God's going to come make everything okay. And I don't want to like sound blasphemous. I'm very spiritual still. I do have a
mm-hmm,
relationship with God. I still very much believe in partnering with um greater power, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, to create and manifest a life of my dream, and then I have specific purpose. So I'm still very much tied to that. But I believe the church twists and contorts that in a way to make it fantasy like, and
mm-hmm.
looking at fantasy rather than reality. Because if anybody had actually sat me down and said, Janice, what is the reality of what you and
Yeah,
your fiance, like what's actually really happening, how is he actually looking at you, what are your,
mm-hmm.
have you talked through finances, have we didn't know, they just let it all be this fantasy story until it all came crashing down.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, and I think of the term that comes to mind for me is, and I need, this is my own journey I'm working on, but like the over spiritualization of everything. Like I get so, ugh, like I get the ick. I don't know a
Yeah,
more
yeah,
proper way to say that when I'm now around it, because I'm like, and I have to work my way through like being okay with people who are still in that space. Because
sure,
similarly, my relationship with God is so, I mean, it's still a core of who I am. And what I hate is what the church, many churches have done to taint that. And I think that's why I get so passionate about like
yeah,
talking about these issues. But I think of over spiritualization when I hear you talk about that, in the sense that there's this message talked about where there's always hope, there's redemption, there's like God's going to come save. And I'm not saying those things aren't true, but you have to balance that with like everything in the human aspect of, does this person have, to your point, aware, like psychology, does this person have basic awareness of what's happening? Are they willing to make improvements? Like, what is the actual reality of where you're both at? And how could this marriage work? What are you willing to do? And where does it align and not align? And how can we? But none of that is talked about. It literally is just kind of this fantasy, as you were saying, of if you pray enough, or if you do XYZ enough, it will fix itself, it will align itself. And it's
yeah,
like, no, no,
yeah.
that's not
Well, I
how
mean,
it
I
is.
think that I agree. I mean, that was the biggest, and I honestly, I think still sometimes I feel like I'm two people. I feel like I'm one person is the girl who knows how to show up in a Christian environment and shine, like
Mm-hmm.
be
Yeah.
good, say the right phrases. Like I said, we were worship leaders, so I could stand and lead worship, and it was genuine. I could feel what I was expressing,
Mhm.
but it also was a form of acting. It's like this person you become, and everyone kind of becomes this version of themselves when they show up in churches and in Christian environments, and then they have the real self, right? And so
Yeah.
I stayed really confused because we were so good at playing the stage version of us, the Christian stage version of us. And
Yeah.
it was so reinforced by everywhere in our environment that that's what it's supposed to look like, that that's what it's supposed to be, it was so affirmed that I would get lost, and I couldn't hold on to reality outside of that pretend version
Mhm.
for years. And I think it
Yeah.
was even me getting out of that environment where I could start, not, it was, his unraveling helped me think clearly, but I think my own ability to think clearly also happened when I got out of the fog of that role playing.
So what would you and I don't know that you have a very specific answer. This is a big question. So
Yeah. Okay.
you can just be like, Nicole, what the hell? No, we're gonna not do that.
Oh
Um
God, what's coming?
no, I think what I'm thinking in this moment is having gone through this and still processing and healing, obviously, what would you say to women, especially women? It could be women anywhere, or not just females, it could be any gender, but somebody who's in a marriage, and probably more specifically those who have come from the culture that we have, who are trying to figure out how do you make sure you're not doing what we just described, right? Like, how do you make sure you're not in a marriage that is allowing this fantasy without doing the work? Does that make sense? I'm trying to think of a
Yeah.
better way to phrase my question, but
Yeah.
like, how do you help people, especially from that culture, go, I want to make sure I'm not doing this so that if there is a chance for my marriage to be better, we like tap into it versus just disconnecting and hoping and praying that it's going to get better without actual steps to make it better.
Right. That's a great question. I don't think it's easy to answer, and I think it very much depends on how in the thick of it you still are. Like if all your friends are
Yeah.
in that culture, if you're, then that it becomes even harder. The thing that comes to mind, and which is something that I did, is just start writing down
Mm,
what's real. Like make a list of the things he actually says to you, the times he actually plans dates with you, the times that he actually pursues sex with you. But if he is ignoring you,
mhm.
if but when you go out together, there is this role you step in. You can tell when you're not, when you're pretending. Like, for example, I used to call restaurants to make reservations and put them in his name so that when we showed up, he could say he made a reservation. Like, so it
Oh,
looked like it's things like that. It's
I
like
did that
I would,
too.
yeah.
I just had that realization that I did the same thing.
Yeah. So this is part of the fantasy, ladies. When we
Mhm.
make reservations in his name, when we make hotel reservations in his name, when we make, we put, but we're doing the work. We're the ones keeping the fantasy alive to make it look like we have a beautiful marriage and this incredible relationship. Is he pursuing, and I get it, like after years and kids it gets hard, like are in the thick of it right now, you've got 3 little kids, you know how hard it is, but there's still, like, surely when you're changing clothes he still is like trying to catch a look, like
Oh,
there are moments,
100%.
like, is he still in it, and I think for a lot of women the answer is still. For me, he would never was in it, but and maybe I'm sure there's other women, but it's like letting yourself own what's real and letting him
Mhm.
own what's real. And you don't have to pretend that it's fine. You don't have to
Mhm.
cover for him. You don't
Yeah.
have to, I mean, and honestly, the longer you do that, the longer you stay miserable. Let it be
Mhm.
real. Let's get honest
Yeah.
about what it's really like. the bullshit he says or doesn't say or how much he ignores you. Like, you don't have to pretend that's
Well,
not happening.
and I think that's another thing that's coming to mind as you're saying that, at least in my own experience in my previous marriage, was this aversion. Oh my God, this might just be my personality, but the intense aversion for me to the fights and the anger. Like when I would bring up issues that, as you're saying, yeah, make it real, like make a list of these things. I would record, I would secretly turn my phone on and do like voice recordings of our arguments because they would last hours and I would leave going like feeling so guilty, like it was all my fault. But in the beginning, I had started it with like, here's the facts. This is what you did. It was manipulative. It was not okay. And then by the end of it, I was crying, feeling guilty because I was not doing XYZ. And so I would start recording because I was like, I really need to hear, am I being crazy? Like, I think I'm losing my mind. And it was sort of in that I would listen back and go, oh, no, no, no. I was not being crazy. Like, here's what was happening in that conversation. Listen to how he spoke to me. And so I think, to your point, making it real is so important. But also, I think another big thing is this like fear of the fight or fear of what's the word I'm looking for? The aftermath of if you blow something up, right? Like if you come and you confront it, there's going to be a blow up and then there's going to be aftermath. And there's just this like fear and protective nature, I think, for us to go, no, I'm going to avoid that. But I think what you said is so important. So, so important. Like, do whatever you need to do to start processing and realizing what is reality versus what
Yeah.
am I making up or what is this other person trying to convince me otherwise. I think getting just down to what is actually happening is a huge first step.
Huge. Yeah, I don't think you need to decide the marriage is over. I don't think you need to decide to leave. I don't think you need to decide anything other than I just don't want to play the game anymore. Like, you don't even
Mm-hmm.
have to be confrontational at first. Just get real with
Yeah.
like get uh get your own feet on solid ground.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more
Mm-hmm.
you're able, it's just kind of what I did. I just had to go to kind of extreme measures like moving to China to do it, but hopefully other people won't have to have something like that. But just like get clear for yourself what's real and
Mm-hmm.
what's not real and refuse to stop like so if you have a man who's not going to call a restaurant and make a reservation, then there's not going to be any reservations at a restaurant. That's not
Mm-hmm.
confrontational. You don't have to tell him he is or isn't doing anything. You just stop doing things that perpetuate the game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, start there and then see where it goes. Maybe he'll step up to the plate. Maybe he'll get some support. I'm not saying that means your marriage is going to end. I'm just saying if you want it to have any kind of a chance, you have to stop pretending.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think sort of piggybacking off of that, I'm wondering if there are people out there who aren't sure, right? Like I think a lot of people get stuck in that space of like, is this a bad marriage? Is this a marriage that's not right for me versus is this just a marriage and we're going through a hard time?
Hmm.
Is there anything you would suggest or say to people to help? And I think part of that is what you just said, like figuring out what the reality is. But what would the next step be to help kind of people figure out, are we just going through a hard time versus
Yeah.
this is not
Yeah.
okay?
Sure. I mean, I think that, yeah, that's going to be really hard to sift out. And my answer to that is I am responsible for my own joy and happiness. You're responsible for
Mm-hmm.
yours. Everybody's responsible for their own. So start pursuing your own joy, happiness, pleasure. Like if you want to, sort of like what you're doing, if you want to go start a creative adventure, start a podcast, start pursuing your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if your partnership is meant to be, it will be messy and rocky and there will be hard conversations and probably fights but if he's really with you and for you or she or whoever your partner is, like they'll evolve with you and want you to be happy and celebrate you. Like it may not be right away and it may be rocky and hard, but that eventually will happen, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
so as far as like what to do, start getting clear on what's real. And the way I did that is by talking with a therapist and just starting to write how I really felt and then taking responsibility for myself and my own happiness and my own well-being, because I think that's another part of the fantasy for women is we're conditioned for him to be our happiness and for him to be our joy and for
Mm-hmm.
him to be our purpose and for him to help
Yeah.
us. He is the reason we feel alive and wanted, and that it that's just, I mean, I'm like, how do I say it? Because I still love, I'm in a relationship now where I am, man, he lights up when I walk in a room and it makes me feel like $1,000,000. And he
Mm-hmm.
does love and celebrate me. And that is a piece of the puzzle. But if I depended only on that for my happiness, then I am
Mm-hmm.
setting the relationship up for failure. So I have to like fill my own cup and pursue my own
Mm-hmm.
happiness and joy and peace and contentment and purpose, um, and then what I get from him is a bonus, and it makes all that other stuff come even more alive.
I think that's so important because especially, and yeah, like you said, I'm in the thick of it. um, especially if you choose to have kids and or when you've been in a relationship for so many years, obviously there's going to be ups and downs and lulls and wonderful times and hard times. But I think of especially when you have kids, which makes everything so much harder just because it really is like a constant giving of yourself 24 hours a day, of your physical self, your mental self, your emotional, I mean, just all of it. So it drains you. And it really does kind of, I think, test those moments of respect and love and commitment. I mean, it does. And so if you were to just rely on the other person for your spark, I think that's such a bad setup. And yet that's the setup we get, whether not even just in like Christian culture, but even in think of like rom-coms. And
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
like finally that's changing in culture. But historically, even like romance was sold as you have this other half to you and they complete oh yeah, you complete me, all of that stuff, into this idea that like this other person makes you happy and whole. But then what happens is then in those hard moments that goes away and you start questioning, am I in the right marriage? Is this person right for me? Because you had this idea that marriage was that one thing. You know what I mean? And so I
Hmm.
think what you're saying is so important because if you are pursuing your own joy and your own endeavors and you're doing the things that bring you life with the balance of also supporting them and doing the exact same thing,
Hmm.
you get through those hard times because you're like, oh, we're in it together. We're going through a hard time. You don't have to light me up right now. I don't have to light you up right now. But guess what? We're here together. We love each other. We're going to get there again. And that's okay. Like, that's a wonderful piece
Hmm.
of it. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I think that's so important, and so important, hopefully, for those listening who might be going, is this a bad marriage? And I hate even using that language, but is this the wrong marriage for me versus,
And
well,
aligned.
this is,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a great, I think honestly, you don't have to decide right now. That maybe you're at a season
No.
or a phase, or you've tried all the things, you've done all the things, you just know that it is okay. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're
Yeah.
like, how did I get here? I don't know. I don't know if I still love them. I don't know where we're at. I don't know. Okay, just start falling in love with you again. Start helping you come alive again. Do things that, um, honestly, that's what I did. I wasn't looking back. That is what I started doing. I wasn't being so intentional with it, like I'm saying to be now, but that was the process of me, like getting back in the gym, taking care of myself, buying new clothes, going out with people that are not associated with him, like starting to just create a life for myself because I got so wrapped up in he and the kids, right, that I
Mm-hmm.
lost myself. And so I started pursuing myself again. And as I started doing that, I started getting more and more and more, for me, clear on, oh, this, not only are we not aligned, we never were. There is nothing to get
Mm-hmm.
back to. There's no beginning. Like, I think a lot of people probably can remember a time when they felt very much in love and the relationship was, and so they're trying to work back to that. Great. For me, that wasn't, I just kind of woke up to like, oh, like there's nothing for me to even try to work back. So it just became super
Mm-hmm.
clear. And
Yeah.
what I always tell my clients is like, when you know, and if you don't know yet, it's okay. It's okay. Just start taking the next step that is for you, and whatever will happen will reveal itself as you're moving forward, moving towards yourself.
No, I think that that's so important. And thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I think that this is such a hard conversation, a hard topic. I think there are so many loud messages in the world right now about what it looks like to be in relationships and marriages. And so I think it's just important to have these real conversations about what does that look like? What was that experience for you? And why do you stay? And why is it so easy to stay? And all of the like heavy, hard stuff that comes with that, the shame, the guilt, the desire to be seen as good, all those things that play into this, because we are talking about the most intimate of relationships, right? So, and as we wrap up, something completely unrelated, just to kind of lighten it up a little bit, something that I want to ask everybody that's on. I call it ridiculous or relatable. So, is there something, and I know there has to be because we all have it, is there something that you do, again, does not have to be related to relationships or anything like that, but that is completely ridiculous, but that also might be a little bit relatable to others? And I can give an example if you need a second, but I think for me, I have so many, which is why I started this. I have a very long list. I go to sleep at night and I look like a medical patient. Like I look scary. I should take some pictures. I have all the things on my face. Like I do face tape to try to like help prevent wrinkles. Then I do mouth tape so that I don't mouth breathe, which sounds so weird. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it. Um, and then I have an eye, like a big, huge eye mask. And then I have a retainer in my mouth. And then in the winter, especially, I have the worst dry hands. Like they crack so bad that they bleed. So I put Vaseline on and then I put large white gloves over the Vaseline. And then I sleep
Sex.
on my back. It's so sexy. And then I sleep on my back like I'm in a coffin. And it looks
Yes.
like I just had severe surgery on my whole body and I can't move. It's ridiculous. So I don't know if that's relatable to
Yes.
anybody, but you have all these things and who knows if it's doing anything. I don't know. But that's what I
Right.
look like at
That's
bedtime.
funny. I went to my mind went to something similar when you said that, because I was thinking about it today actually. Like when in the movies, or even like some influencers, like when they're at home, they've got like these cashmere sets that they wear, or like cute pajamas that are
Yeah.
matchy. And I'm like, some of it's my stuff. I will admit that I have like a thing in my mind that I'm not going to be sexy, because I wasn't for so many years to a man who's gay. Um, so I'm like, when I'm with my partner and I'm like I've got this college sweatshirt that like literally it's ripped all the way down here and it's like stained, and I
Mm-hmm.
wear it every day, like pretty much every day. I come home from work, take my bra off and put that on, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should rethink that. Maybe I should find something that's a little more appealing every now and then. I
Yeah.
don't know, but it's just my thing.
No, I think that is totally relatable because there are just certain things that, and I hope in my mind too, because I have similar outfits like that where I'm like, it's so ugly, but I'm like, isn't it cute? Isn't it kind of, can it maybe be kind of cute that it's like so baggy and so ugly and there's like stains?
Uh,
And maybe I'm just
yeah.
trying to convince myself to give me a reason to keep wearing it. But no, I completely relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite tricky when you're wanting to keep the romance alive, but you're like, "Oh, damn, that means okay, what does that mean?" Like I can't be so cute all the time.
Oh man, that's so funny.
Yeah, I don't know how ridiculous. I mean, I guess it's a bit ridiculous, but yeah.
No, I think that's pretty ridiculous. It's both. It's ridiculous and relatable because if there's a
Okay.
tear down the whole side, I mean, that's a little ridiculous, but
I can't get rid
it's
of
like
it.
why are you wearing a sweatshirt if it's like half open?
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
but I also do it, so again.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so good. Always so good talking to you, and thanks for just being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I'm sure I will have you on many more times.
I hope so. This is fun.
I just want to take a minute and say thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. It really means the world to me that you would take time out of your day to be here together with me and with others as we try to navigate the multiple truths that we hold in our lives. And a huge thank you to Janice Holland, the trauma teacher, for joining us today. If you were inspired by her powerful message, you are definitely not alone. Janice is on a mission to help people break free from the patterns that keep them stuck. And if you're ready to make that shift in your own life, she has incredible resources to support you. Whether you are a therapist looking to deepen your trauma expertise with the trauma model certification, or you're somebody who's ready to step into your true power and break the cycle with the Courageous Living membership, Janice's programs are designed to guide you toward lasting change. And if you're ready for even more transformation, her Courageous Living group program offers supportive community and the accountability that you need to truly thrive. So if you're wondering how to get started, you can click the link in the show notes below. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and take a moment to leave a quick rating and review of the show on Apple Podcasts by clicking the link in the show notes. Leaving a rating and a review is probably one of the most impactful things you can do for the show. It really helps others who might be struggling with some of these same things to find us. And I love hearing from each of you, so please follow the show on Instagram at It's Both Podcast to join the conversation and get behind the scenes content. You can also send me an email directly at itsbothpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, it's okay to feel all the things because so many times in life, it's not either or, it's both.